Hi, it's Ryan from Ryan Fowler Photography, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review of the Samyang 14mm f2.8 lens for Canon. So I did say for Canon, you can get them for Nikon as well and probably a few other brands, but I know that you can definitely get them for the two main manufacturers. And I've had a chance to use this lens for a little while now. I initially upgraded to a Canon 6D, so I went from a crop sensor body to a full frame. And when I did, I didn't have a wide angle lens. So I decided to go with this one rather than spending another $2,000 on an alternative lens. And this one only costs about $440 brand new, which is fantastic. It's a very cheap, affordable lens for a lot of people. And it's got a really nice build quality about it. It's really nice and solid, but it is fully manual. Some people watching this video may not understand what fully manual is. I know I certainly didn't when I first started researching into the lens, but then I learned along the way. So fully manual means that there's no electronic parts in here. So you've got your aperture ring actually on the lens, and then you've also got your focus ring on the lens as well. So you will actually have to set your aperture on the lens before doing any shots, and if you accidentally leave it at f2.8, you will be shooting at f2.8 instead of f8 or 11 or something like that if you are doing a landscape shot, which I have done myself, and sometimes the results don't come out as sharp as you would like them to be. In saying that, sharpness is very good with this lens. As long as you're focused right and you've got your right aperture set, you will get very nice sharpness out of this. And it's also got a really good close minimum focusing distance. It's only very short, so if you're doing a wide landscape, then you could get, for example, flowers in the foreground with a mountain in the background while being really close to the flowers and still getting that ultra wide perspective, which is a great thing about this lens. Setting the exposure in your camera, however, is a little bit different to how you'd normally do it. So with a normal lens, you would, if you're in manual mode, you would set your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. With this lens, you actually have to set your ISO, set the aperture on the lens, go into live view, increase your exposure until it's oversaturated and you can see the or overexposed, sorry, and you can see the foreground properly. Focus in the foreground, go out of live view and use your exposure meter to get your actual exposure based on your shutter speed and the aperture that's been set in here, because on your camera it comes up f00, so it almost doesn't show that the lens is properly attached. It's a little bit tricky, I know, but once you get used to it, you really get used to it. 14mm on full frame is absolutely fantastic. It's ultra wide, you get an amazingly wide perspective. But sometimes it can be a little bit too wide. It's sometimes a little bit limiting because if there's something in the background that you want to make look bigger or emphasize, 14mm is going to push that way back. It's going to make this big ominous mountain look minute, which is sometimes not a great effect and not the effect that you're going for in your image. Another downside I found about this lens is that when I bought it, I just bought a brand new set of Koken neutral density filters, and I really do enjoy using filters. Some people prefer to use HDR or bracket or exposure blend. I like to try and get as much right in camera as I possibly can, but there is a big downside to this. Because the front element is very bulbous and it's got that spherical look to it and spherical design, you can't use standard filters on it. So Koken have actually designed a specialty filter for this that you have to sit over this front element, and although you can get this, you have to buy a brand new set of filters, which is I believe 150 by 150 millimeters. So they're very big filters. The filter holder is massive for this, and then you've got all your other lenses as well, so you don't want to have to carry around so many different filters and filter holders, and it just gets bulky. You don't want to be bulked down and lugging around all these different things. So on this lens I've been using HDR, and on other lenses I've been using filters and so on. but it's just been a little slow in processing. It takes a little longer to do that, and I would rather be out shooting than processing. So the best thing that this lens is designed for, and something that is a huge win for it, is the f2.8 aperture. So if you're going to do any form of astrophotography, or have done before, you know how important f2.8 is, as it's a faster f-stop and it allows more light to come into your lens. Being so wide in f2.8, astrophotography is amazing on this. It allows you to capture so many vast scenes. Things like the Milky Way are fantastic because you can capture a wide scene, see the Milky Way clearly, and still get a foreground in your shot as well, while keeping to f2.8 and allowing a lot of light to come into your lens and onto your sensor, which I've absolutely loved this. So it is best for astrophotography in my personal view. You may find a different use for it, but that's completely up to you. Something that I have found tricky with this lens is handheld shooting. It's nearly impossible, especially in low light situations, because you need a faster shutter speed, but having to actually go into live view, increase your exposure, find a manual focus point, keep your camera dead still while you do it so you don't lose that focal point, reset your shutter speed, and then take the shot is very tricky. I was in New Zealand recently, and I managed to get a couple of shots with this handheld, and they came out looking pretty good. It was a couple of starburst shots, so I'm very happy with them, but it was just really inconvenient and awkward to try and use it. Now, before you go leaving me a comment, I know that Samyang has released an autofocus version of this lens, which I actually haven't had a chance to try out yet. So I would like to give that a try and see if I could give the Samyang a better review for handheld. But if you want to do anything handheld with an ultra wide angle lens, this isn't the one for you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this quick review of the Samyang 14mm f2.8 lens. There are so many different options that you can use this for, and personally I love it. But for any form of handheld or walking around shooting, I won't be putting it in my bag. If you do want to do anything like that, I'd suggest going with some of the bigger brands like Canon, Nikon, Tamron, Sigma, some of the other companies that make ultra wide angle lenses with autofocus, so that you can set your f-stop, you can set your shutter speed, you can see properly, the exposure meter works properly for you, and you don't have to be on a tripod to use it. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, I'd love to know what you think, and don't tell me about the autofocus version because I do know that it does exist. And please hit that subscribe button for more videos like this and so many more. I will see you in the next video.